Dort goes over out of his way, and this is what gets the reaction from Jokic.
Jokic would later justify his response to the unnecessary move. It was the single play that set the entire sports world on fire. He was the league's 3-time most valuable player only weeks back on the court after a knee injury had sidelined him for a month. He was deliberately sent sprawling to the floor. The retaliation that followed stunned the arena into a collective gasp, and his comments after the game may have ignited the most volatile rivalry in the NBA. This was a tinderbox waiting for a spark. To understand the explosion, you must first understand that the game on February 27, 2026 between the Denver Nuggets and the Oklahoma City Thunder was never going to be just another date on the calendar. It was the inevitable end of a months-long collision course, a conflict fueled by the ghosts of playoffs past, bitter divisional hatred, and a brutal physicality that had whistles blowing before the opening tip. The first 3 quarters were a roadmap to the chaos that was about to unfold. If you weren't watching closely, you missed every sign that this game was destined to turn ugly. Let's set the stage. The Oklahoma City Thunder arrived as the reigning NBA champions, fresh off a stunning 4-3 series upset over Denver in the previous year's Western Conference semifinals. That series had been an all-out war. Nikola Jokic had opened with a dominant 42.22 rebound performance in Game 1. Aaron Gordon nailed a game-winning 3 that stole home court advantage, and it looked for all the world like Denver was on a clear path. But the Thunder answered with a punishing 149-106 demolition in Game 2. From that point on, Oklahoma City took command. They dominated 3 of the next 4 contests, ultimately slamming the door in Game 7, with a 125-93 rout in Oklahoma City as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander poured in 35 points in what was a complete and utter dismantling of the Nuggets. That defeat shadowed Denver for the entire offseason. When February arrived, the Nuggets were desperate for retribution, desperate to prove that the championship DNA of their 2023 season had not vanished. But there was a glaring problem. Denver was faltering. They had limped to a 4-7 record since Jokic returned from a month on the sidelines with a hyperextended left knee. Their performance in crunch time was even worse, a disastrous one, and 6 record in close games over that span. The Nuggets were a team that had lost its nerve, unable to close out games or find the killer instinct that had made them champions just 2 years earlier. On the other side of the court, the Thunder were getting their own superstar back. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was returning from a 9-game absence with an abdominal strain, and the Paycom Center was electric with anticipation. The raw energy inside the arena felt like a playoff game from the moment the doors opened. Nuggets interim coach David Adelman laid out the team's strategy in no uncertain terms before the game. "We're not going to play the way we did in Denver. Like I said, we're going to be physical with these guys." And physical they were. From the opening tip, the Nuggets came out looking for a brawl. Less than 2 minutes into the game, Jokic shoved Thunder center Isaiah Hartenstein during a dead ball, then immediately delivered a forearm to Gilgeous-Alexander after the whistle. What happened next established the hostile tone for the rest of the night. A furious Gilgeous-Alexander grabbed the ball and threw it directly at Jokic, earning an instant technical foul. But the home crowd erupted when Jokic received no penalty. The crew chief later explained that Jokic's actions didn't meet the criteria for an unsportsmanlike act, while SGA's retaliation absolutely did. Just like that, not even 3 minutes into the game, the fuse on this powder keg had been lit. The physicality only intensified. Jokic drew his second personal foul early in the first quarter, getting into repeated tangles with Jalen Williams in the post that were defined by constant pushing and jersey grabbing. It wasn't subtle. Officials had to physically separate the 2 players multiple times before the ball was even inbounded, which tells you everything you need to know about the game's intensity from the jump. Far from the main action, Jokic was also getting tied up with both Lu Dort and Aaron Wiggins in the backcourt during live play. Players were grabbing, holding and bumping each other all over the floor, and the officials were losing their grip on the game. Amid constant trash talk and shoving from both teams, the Nuggets bench was hit with a technical foul in the third quarter. Thunder coach Mark Dino acknowledged that the deep familiarity between the 2 rivals was the source of the contempt. "These are 2 teams that played each other in a 7-game series. We're in the same division." It's the kind of familiarity that breeds a specific brutal brand of basketball. The kind where every screen feels like an assault, every box out is a street fight, and every dead ball is a chance to send a physical message. These athletes know each other's tendencies. They know how to get under each other's skin, and they know which buttons to push. On this night, they were pushing all of them. Through it all, Denver actually managed to control the scoreboard for most of the contest, leading 59-50 at halftime on the back of hitting 11 of their first 23 pointers. Jamal Murray, questionable with an illness before the game, was playing brilliantly, and Jokic was steadily working his way toward his league-leading 22nd triple-double of the year, the 186th of his career. But the Thunder began to chip away. SGA scored 14 in the third quarter, cutting Oklahoma City's deficit to just 6 points heading into the fourth. Then Lu Dort came alive, hitting a go-ahead three-pointer to put the Thunder up 86-85 before adding a mid-range shot to keep the pressure on. Dort was playing with a fierce confidence that had Denver on its heels, with the crowd's roar growing louder with every basket. Into this frenzy, Jokic checked back in at the 9:30 mark of the final quarter. And with the outcome hanging on a razor's edge, Oklahoma City clinging to a slim 98-96 lead. After a Jared McCain basket, the game finally exploded. Because what Lu Dort did next with 8 minutes and 3 seconds left on the clock was about to turn this basketball game into an all-out war. The flashpoint. Here is the scene. It's the fourth quarter, 8:03 remaining. Oklahoma City has just taken a 98-96 lead. The game was a blur of motion, both teams racing up the court in transition when the play came to a dead stop. Lu Dort, running alongside Nikola Jokic, suddenly jutted his right leg out, hip-checking the three-time MVP directly in the knee and sending him crashing down to the floor. This was the same knee that had just kept him out for an entire month, the same hyperextended joint he was just recovering from. And now he was sprawled on the hardwood, not from a basketball play, but from a deliberate trip by a defender that had zero to do with the game itself. The announcers saw the dirty play in an instant and immediately called for the replay to break it down. We're going to see it again? It seems to me that Dort, as he spots Jokic moving up the floor. And that momentary hesitation is absolutely crucial, because the slow-motion replay revealed a damning truth. That subtle shift and the sticking out of the right leg is what ignited this whole thing. Then the shoving begins. What happened next sent a shockwave through the entire basketball community. Nikola Jokic, a man renowned for his cool, almost emotionless demeanor on the court, exploded off the floor and went straight for Lu Dort, getting chest-to-chest, nose-to-nose. And the look burning in Jokic's eyes was one the world had almost never seen from him. He's right up in Dort's face. Jalen Williams jumps in. That's when Jalen Williams charged in to back up his teammate, shoving Jokic and yanking on his jersey. Jokic swung his arm back toward Williams's head in response. Officials would later rule it was a defensive move to break free, not a punch, as the two got tangled in a messy scrum that required players, coaches, and refs to break up. It was a chaotic scene of tangled limbs and stretched jerseys, and for a terrifying second, it felt like a full-blown brawl was about to erupt. It didn't appear he threw a punch, but that is what the officials will review. And in that moment, the broadcast zoomed in on an image that communicated the entire story without a single word. Just look at his eyes. The sheer intensity pouring out of him suggests he is absolutely ready to go to war. That haunting image of Jokic's face, which fans immediately branded the crazy eyes, became the symbol of the whole conflict. This wasn't just simple frustration. This wasn't just the heat of competition. This was pure rage. The kind of raw, unfiltered emotion that comes from a deep, primal place when you believe someone just tried to destroy your career. And when you've already endured the agony, the rehab, and the fear of a major knee injury, a play like that doesn't just make you mad. It makes you feel like your very livelihood is under direct assault. The referees huddled at the monitor for a review that lasted roughly 2 to 3 minutes, conferring with the replay center to gauge the severity of the fouls and decide if anyone deserved to be tossed. A hush fell over the arena. Players paced nervously, some still trading insults, while their coaches desperately tried to restore calm. Then the official ruling was announced. It has been concluded that the foul committed by Lu Dort was both unnecessary and excessive. We are elevating that foul to a flagrant penalty 2. That was it. A flagrant 2 meant an automatic ejection. Lu Dort's night was over. Lu Dort has been ejected from the game. Following that, we have a foul assessed to Williams. For additional context, the crew chief's complete explanation in the official NBA pool report noted that Dort's action was ruled excessive due to its high potential for injury and because it sparked an altercation that did not quickly de-escalate. Jokic and Jalen Williams were both given offsetting technical fouls, but neither was ejected as officials determined no actual punches were landed. But this is where the real argument began. The broadcasters themselves seemed to question the severity of the punishment. I'm shocked they called a flagrant 2. I can see the flagrant one. It's contact that is not necessary. And that perfectly captured the split in opinion. Flagrant 1 versus flagrant 2 became the screaming headline for every sports outlet in the country. Do you believe it should have been a flagrant 2? To be completely honest with you, I believed it was a flagrant one. The crew on Inside the NBA was just as divided. Shaquille O'Neal minimized the whole incident, framing it as the kind of physical contact that is normal in a tough game. I would not call that a flagrant. It's just, a medium-level foul. Like it's not even a particularly hard check. It's more of a medium check. Shaq even defended the act as being woven into the very fabric of the sport. Every so often, Ernie, you have to remind guys you're there. Like, this isn't a sport where games lack physicality, and you just allow people to run right past you. But Charles Barkley vehemently disagreed with that perspective, and this is where the entire debate pivoted. And I disagree with Shaq on this. I have no problem with touching guys up. But he tripped that man. And then Chuck raised the critical point that put the whole event into its proper terrifying context, the injury factor. That single element is what elevates this from a standard basketball argument into something much darker. I believe what makes Jokic so sensitive is, man, after you've been hurt, you feel like, especially when someone pulls a dirty move on you. And that is precisely the heart of this entire matter. When an athlete who just fought his way back from a severe knee injury gets deliberately tripped right at that same knee, his response is no longer about the game. It's about his livelihood. It's about his entire career. It's about the paralyzing fear that one reckless, dirty play could snatch everything away in a single moment. In the end, the Thunder managed to win the game 127-121 in overtime, with SGA sitting out the final period on a minute's restriction. Dort left the game with 12 points and 5 rebounds before he was tossed. Jokic still recorded a triple-double with 23 points, 17 rebounds, and 14 assists, but struggled with his shot, hitting just 9 of 25 from the floor. Jamal Murray poured in 39 points to keep Denver in the fight, despite being questionable to play with an illness. But it simply wasn't enough. Denver's late-game woes persisted, but in truth, the final score felt almost meaningless by that point. Because the only thing anyone wanted to discuss was what Jokic, Dort and the coaches had to say after the game, the fallout and the simmering tension of what would happen next. The game on the court was over, but the war of words was just beginning as every microphone became a weapon. Every statement a new battlefront. Each man had a different story to tell, a different motive, and a different message to broadcast to the entire basketball world, starting with the Titan at the center of the tempest, Nikola Jokic. Still visibly simmering with fury, he was confronted directly about the foul, and his answer was classic. Jokic brutally honest, straight to the point, and simmering with unspoken threats just below the surface. He acknowledged the contest had been a battle. When questioned about his view of the foul that ignited the conflict, his response was telling. He dismissed any need for extensive commentary, framing the incident with chilling simplicity. It was an unnecessary move on their part, which triggered a necessary reaction on his. Then came the phrase that would define the entire chaotic affair, a line that was repeated and analyzed endlessly. He called it an unnecessary move and a necessary reaction. Those words landed with the force of a body check. Jokic wasn't merely recounting a play, he was drawing a battle line. He was declaring that Dort's actions were outside the bounds of the sport, and that his own response, getting in Dort's face, refusing to yield an inch, was not just appropriate, but required by the moment. This was not an apology for his aggression, it was a justification for it. When pressed on whether his anger had been escalating throughout the game, Jokic parried the question with the ice-cold poise of a champion who has weathered the fiercest playoff storms. He acknowledged the opponent's tendency to play on the very edge of the rules, but coolly stated that his team had responded in kind. And when the conversation turned to the official review and the possibility of his ejection, Jokic's demeanor became almost contemptuous, as if the question itself was an insult. When asked if he feared being tossed from the game during the review, his answer was 5 words steeped in pure, unshakable self-assurance. He stated that he believed he did nothing wrong, and in the end, the league agreed. Officials confirmed no punches were ever thrown, and the final report stated that neither his nor Williams's actions rose to the level of an ejection. But it was the Nuggets coach David Adelman who delivered the night's most damning testimony. He didn't just back his player. He diagnosed the root cause of the explosion. In doing so, he gave a voice to a deep-seated frustration that has haunted the league's big men for a generation. He argued that Jokic's rage stemmed from a fundamental hypocrisy in how the game is officiated, a different set of rules for the perimeter than for the paint. That declaration was an earthquake. Adelman was openly accusing the league's referees of a blatant double standard, calling out the disparity between how fouls are called in the post versus away from the basket. The evidence was stark. Jokic had attempted just 5 free throws all game, despite enduring a relentless physical assault. For a superstar of his stature, a 3-time most valuable player who operates almost exclusively in the paint, that number was a grotesque insult. It underscored a wider problem that the league's centers have protested for decades, and Adelman made it clear Jokic would not back down from it. He praised his star's competitive fire before dropping a line that put the entire league on notice for the March 9th rematch. It was less a prediction and more of a chilling guarantee, stating that when they meet again in about 10 days, the intensity would be exactly the same. From the Thunder's locker room, coach Mark Dino chose his words with surgical precision. He never condemned Dort, nor did he call the play dirty. Instead, he strategically shifted the focus, demanding unwavering officiating consistency for every team in every game going forward. He declared that if this was the new standard for a flagrant foul, then it must be applied universally. His most pointed remark was a direct challenge to the league itself, questioning the precedent that had been set. He demanded that this new standard be applied to everyone, not just when a 3-time MVP is involved. It was a clear and pointed message that the league office would now be forced to address. Jalen Williams, the man who had charged in to back up Dort, kept his own remarks terse and defiant. He described the scuffle as nothing more than 2 teams competing fiercely. His brevity was a statement in itself. Williams offered no apology and showed no sign of retreat. He was sending a clear signal that the Thunder would not alter their aggressive identity for any opponent. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's comments perfectly captured the Thunder's raw combative mentality as the season entered its critical final phase. He framed the game as a high-stakes war between 2 elite teams that were both desperate to win and willing to go to any length to secure victory. Then he fiercely defended his teammate, rejecting the growing narrative that was casting Dort as the league's new arch-villain. He insisted that Dort was not a malicious player, but simply a warrior, singularly focused on winning. But then the plot took its most dramatic turn. Lu Dort himself was nowhere to be found. He was not made available to the press. The Thunder organization deliberately kept him from the cameras, a strategic silence that roared louder than any public statement could. Because for those who knew where to look, Dort's past was littered with similar controversial incidents. His official record showed 4 career ejections, including an elbow on Kevin Love in 2021 and a low blow on Daniel Gafford in 2023 that many fans called one of the foulest plays they had ever witnessed. Add to that a dangerous undercut that ended Ja Morant's season during the 2025 playoffs, and now this trip of Nikola Jokic. All across the internet, highlight reels began to surface, painting a portrait of Dort as the most ruthless player in the entire NBA. And while Thunder loyalists defended him as a premier defender who simply played with more intensity than anyone else, the accumulating pattern of reckless, borderline dangerous plays was becoming impossible to deny. The reaction from fans online was immediate and absolutely explosive. The internet erupted in a firestorm of debate, with fans demanding a suspension of up to 10 games. Yet just as many rushed to Dort's defense, arguing it was simply tough playoff-style basketball in a contest that had already spun out of control. As of March 1, 2026, the league office had yet to issue any punishment beyond his ejection from the game, though a fine was still on the table. From the broadcast booth, Dwyane Wade and Udonis Haslem captured the sentiment of the entire basketball world as they watched the chaos unfold. They knew this felt like a preview of the Western Conference Finals, a truly electric atmosphere that pointed to the much bigger story at play. The rivalry between the Nuggets and the Thunder is no longer just another game on the calendar. It has ignited into one of the most brutal, passionate, and raw conflicts in the entire league. Their next meeting is scheduled for March 9th, with the potential return of injured players on both sides fueling the anticipation. With the memory of this ugly confrontation still burning fresh, the next chapter in this saga is guaranteed to be even more incendiary. Because this game revealed an undeniable truth, Nikola Jokic will not be intimidated. Lu Dort will not alter his game. When these two forces collide again, everyone will need to be watching because this feud is far from settled.